and I was going to make you thinner. I said, well, don't make me fatter based on other things. Right. Anyway, so hopefully he has the same skills.
I'm sure he does.
Yeah.
Oh, cool. All right, so are we all good? All right, Justin?
Yeah.
Deb?
Yeah, give me one.
Good.
Give me a chance to clear before you start.
Sure, will do. So the title of our event tonight is You Don't Know Jack. What don't we know about you that you think that we should know about you?
Well, like everybody, I'm complex. I'm not a cartoon character. My convincing myself that I was right is actually far worse than my going and doing the same thing and knowing it's wrong, but doing it anyway.
The story of Jack Abramoff is a fellow who was approached to be a lobbyist, and he told the people who interviewed him, well, I'd be willing to be a lobbyist. That sounds like something I might want to do. And they said, well, would you represent someone whose cause you didn't believe in, if it would bring a lot of money into our firm?
Lloyd asked me, would I be willing to do things I disagreed with if a client needed it? And I said, no, I wouldn't. And he said, well, what if it meant a lot of money to our firm? And I told him, no, I wouldn't. I figured that was the end of the interview.
And they said, you know, that's what we want to hear. You're the kind of guy we want. And he was an extraordinarily competitive, very bright, I would say, very strategic person who very quickly became the most prominent lobbyist in Washington, D.C.
Your left foot right where the screen's coming
You won't get bonked in the head, in other words, with a light bulb.
What? Left foot? I wasn't watching. What's going on?
It's just swinging.
The last thing moving around.
In many ways, Jack Abramoff began his life as an embodiment of the American dream. He was a high school football star. He went to college and became active in the college Republicans and was extraordinarily successful there in advancing causes that he truly believed in. He began his life as an extraordinarily admirable person. And then when he got into lobbying, he was very successful, worked very hard, was very smart, and just went off the rails.
Jack Abramoff, the one-time super lobbyist and traveling companion of former House Republican leader Tom DeLay, pleaded guilty today to charges related to congressional bribes, and he agreed to cooperate with prosecutors.
Jack Abramoff's guilty plea to charges of tax evasion, conspiracy, and fraud could spell trouble for some of Washington's top power brokers, including more than a dozen members of Congress.
If I'm a congressman and you're a lobbyist and you constantly take me out to really nice dinners or take me golfing or, you know, give me all sorts of other benefits, then I know that there's a little bit of a quid pro quo.
The lobbying culture mixes money and power, and that can be dangerous. But is Abramoff an exception, or is he just a lobbyist who figured out a way to game the system and then got caught?
When you see someone who never loses as a lobbyist, you know that person is likely to be abusing the system.
Even by Washington standards, the charges against Jack Abramoff are breathtaking.
I have no choice but to assert my various constitutional privileges.
His business dealings are the subject of investigations by the FBI, a federal grand jury, the IRS, and 2 congressional committees.
But I mean, people in general, particularly on issues of ethics, tend to underestimate, you know, how much, you know, incentives matter or personal interest matters or their own biases matter.
A pathetic, disgusting example of greed run amok.
That greed involves allegations that Abramoff's business defrauded 6 Indian tribes of more than $66 million. The tribe's treasurer says they had no idea they were being ripped off.
When they're working for one of the most prestigious law firms in Washington, D.C., you think they should be on the up and up.
A contrite Abramoff told a federal court that words will never be able to express my sorrow and my profound regret. Yet the corruption he acknowledged was breathtaking in scope, bilking Indian tribes of more than $60 million, keeping nearly half of it in kickbacks.
In my opinion, they was a bunch of thieves.
would say that the scandal he was involved in was not as big as the Watergate scandal. Nonetheless, it had a real impact on people's perception of our democracy and people's perception of how things work in Washington, D.C.
The system's broken, that it's for sale to the highest bidder.
Lobbying our politicians, I believe that it's a conflict of interest.
Bad apple spoils the bunch. I mean, it's never just one.
I think that oftentimes people see white-collar crimes and say, nobody bled, nobody died. So what's the big deal? I think that completely misses the harm that was done that's very difficult to measure, such as the harm to society, the harm to people who are disillusioned with the political system, the harm to clients who didn't win because Jack and his colleagues were cheating and gaming the system.
I didn't think anything was wrong until I was laying in the gutter. And in the gutter, with my head cut off, I finally had the opportunity to just really think about this. And I started looking at my emails. I sent 850,000 emails over the decade that I was a lobbyist. And I had lawyers who were looking at them to see if I did anything to break the law. And we started looking at them, and I saw that I went over the line. I broke the law. It was there in black and white. I did it. I wrote it. I thought it.
Dave Spetz will be giving a little introduction first and kind of setting the stage, and then we'll open it up to students.
Could you talk a little bit about the kinds of lobbying activities that you were involved in that led to the conspiracy to commit bribery charges?
Well, all of the lobbying I was involved in led to the problem. I mean, so Congress is completely for sale. They're not consciously for sale, most of them, and most of them would deny that anybody is buying anything from them. But anytime you give something to somebody, if you're a normal human being and you get something from somebody, what are you going to feel? Gratitude, right? At some level. Somebody does something nice for you, unless you're a jerk, you're going to be thankful.
Mr. Abramoff turned out to be very much like most of the other white-collar criminals that we've brought onto campus over the years. A nice man, a smart man, a reflective man, a religious man, a man who loves his family, a man who has many characteristics that I hope that I have. And yet he really, really screwed up and made some really terrible decisions and committed some crimes. But if a man like that can do it, under the right circumstances, I could do it. And our students could do it, and that's the lesson, part of the lesson we hoped our students learn.
I run Texas Army ROTC. Yeah, it's all, we're almost getting good at it. Or in whatever way that you can best connect with the audience, let them realize how good people end up making decisions that are ultimately bad for themselves or bad for the organization.
Understand.
That work?
Yep.
Well, let's go have some lunch and have a great discussion.
Everybody in Washington thinks they have power, and I was among them, and that power sometimes can, and frankly often does, breed an arrogance. And that arrogance led me as the leader of my group to encourage that the ends ultimately justify the means. We have to win. Winning was everything. Unfortunately, in that world, and frankly in virtually every world, that's not a good approach.
I saw so many of the concepts that we talk about in the ethics classroom illustrated by his perspectives and his perceptions of himself and his behavior.
The normal behavior in Washington, in the business I was in, was to do the kind of things I did. I just pushed over the lines. I did more than other people did. People would buy tickets, say, for a congressman and their staff for the basketball games, and they'd buy 4 tickets to the arena and they'd give them out. So I would have 50 tickets. People took folks to play golf. They would go to the country club. I would put them on an airplane flying to Scotland.
I think he had a whole elaborate scheme of rationalizations that blinded him from seeing the things he was doing that were wrong.
Rationalizations are excuses that we give ourselves for not living up to our own ethical standards.
I loved my clients and fought for them and bled for them and worked day and night for them. They were up against the bullies of Washington, the powerful elite establishment, the other lobbyists who I disdained, who I thought lived a lifestyle that was often one of sort of a drunken debauchery, frankly. So we were winning victories on important issues. We were saving our clients billions of dollars. We were making tens of millions of dollars.
You know, these people are not lying when they say, I did this, you know, for the right reasons. It's, you know, they actually oftentimes will believe this. It's just the fact that their mind has tricked them into believing this.
I viewed my lobbying and my efforts there as a way to reverse what I thought was an unfortunate trend on the part of K Street, and as a consequence, corporate America, to not support the conservative movement.
I think it was very easy for Jack Abramoff to see himself as an ethical person. He had defined his role as a lobbyist in terms of two factors. One was that he picked clients whose causes he believed in, and he did. He picked clients whose causes were in line with his conservative ideology. And then number two, the second factor was he working as hard as he could to win on behalf of his clients? And he was. What did not enter into his frame was the means he was using to win.
He himself in his book writes about the fact that there were conflicts of interest that he was part of, essentially bribing legislators to get results. And he would do that during the day. At night, he would go home and he would read the Torah and he would read about how bribery was bad and should not be done. And he did not make that connection.
My faith certainly doesn't advocate any of this kind of activity. The Bible is very severe about bribery. I would look at that, by the way, the Bible speaks about bribing judges, doesn't talk about legislators. So even when it came up, I would think, well, this isn't the same thing. I'm not bribing a judge. These aren't judges. Well, the truth is, our sages in the last couple hundred years, there weren't legislators or legislators at the time of the Bible.
I think he had what I call a compartmentalization. He had one set of values for his friends and family, his personal life, his religious life. He had another set for his work life.
I was passionately interested in helping people, and so when people came to me with a need, whoever they were, I usually responded by giving them money.
He had children who had no other place to live, living in his home, so he was helping people. That helped him to feel good about what he was doing.
It was really easy for him to say, oh, look at all the good things I'm doing, and then to unconsciously give himself license not to live up to his own standards.
Here they still allow it, it goes to money. Do you think that your prosecution, et cetera, actually changed how the practice of lobbying is done in D.C.?
No.
And where do lobbyists like me, who are coming at this from the public interest perspective, who don't have access to
money,
I don't have access to money, in a structure that's increasingly reliant upon money, how do we play in a world like that?
When we were up against other lobbyists, frequently we were up against lobbyists like us. We were not frequently up against the ethical lobbyist who's playing on the merits and trying to educate members of Congress based on what's good and right. So right now, the playing field is so tilted that it's virtually impossible to win if you're up against somebody like I was. Very few people have a discussion along the lines of, I'll do this for you, but you have to give me some money for it. Normally, there's never a conversation like that. There's, I'm your friend, you're my friend, what do you need? You know, oh, well, I'm trying to raise $1 million to make sure I get reelected. Okay, I'll take care of $300,000, I'll throw a fundraiser, don't worry about it. Okay, great, Jack, what do you need? Well, I've got clients that have got these interests. Oh, I think I can be helpful on that. That's the discussion. I thought I was great. I thought I was moral. I thought, frankly, we had an approach to our clients that we weren't going to lose. They're paying us money, and the moral thing to do is to give them what they paid for. I thought other lobbyists who didn't do that, who didn't care whether their clients lost or not, were the immoral lobbyists. And this is quite ironic, actually, that I thought I was the moral lobbyist.
But most Americans believe that they are more ethical, more moral than their neighbors, then their co-workers, then their competitors in business. 92% of Americans, when asked, will tell you they are satisfied with their moral character. Well, if you're satisfied with your moral character, and if you just know that you're more ethical than other people out there, then you tend to not worry about ethics. You just say, hey, if I run into ethical issues, I'm pretty confident that I'll handle them well, because after all, I'm more ethical than other people, and I've got good moral character, and you count on character to carry you through. You don't pay attention to the situational factors that can affect everyone's decision-making.
Unfortunately, the lines are drawn in Washington where you can be completely illegal and completely contemptible and corrupt at the same time. You're allowed to give certain kinds of bribes, which you're not allowed to give other kinds of bribes. And unfortunately for me, I did both. I stopped caring where the line in the sand was from all these, quote, little laws that in my arrogance I thought didn't apply to me or I wouldn't have get in my way as I pursued my goals because I wanted to win at all costs. And the ends justified the means, and other horrible things that unfortunately became part of the barnacles on my ship that eventually started steering it.
His life was on hyperspeed. He was hyper-competitive. He wasn't reflecting. He wasn't raising questions. No one else was raising questions because he was so phenomenally successful. So I do think he was in something of a bubble that buffered him from thinking about these issues.
I became arrogant. I had so much success. I had so much, I won everything. My team and I won everything. Every one of my strategies seemed to work. Every one of our opponents was vanquished. And an arrogance set in. And the arrogance was manifest also in my not listening to people if they weren't telling me what I wanted to hear. And the one fellow I would have listened to, I didn't tell him this stuff because I didn't think it was sort of the dirty world of politics, and he wasn't in that world. And I didn't think he, could quite understand all the nuances like I did. So unfortunately for me, I didn't avail myself of him as a mentor.
I wasn't the devil that the media were so quick to create, but neither was I the saint I always hoped to become. I was somewhere in the middle. As you deliver this message, are people believing you?
Why should we listen to you? You're kind of the smoker telling us how to watch our health, right?
Well,
the former smoker. Right?
Yeah, actually, one should listen to a former smoker who coughed and maybe had his lung removed and has a hole in his throat. Yeah, definitely listen to him.
Kind of now it seems like you're almost your perhaps most important lobbying client ever.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
It's good to hear your story.
Thank you.
George?
Hi, how are you?
I have a weird question.
Okay.
I just want to ask you what it was like to be on Colbert.
It was very funny. No,
She has a PhD in humor theory, so.
Really?
Yes.
It's not easy for anyone who's committed serious crimes to completely redeem themselves, and I'm not sure he ever will. All he can do is try. And as we watch him over the years, I think we'll be able to make a judgment as to whether or not he's truly sincere and whether or not he really wishes to redeem himself.
The material fall wasn't as important or dramatic to me as the realization that I had caused my fall and that I had done wrong.
Mr. Abramoff did go to jail. While he was in jail, he was incarcerated with mostly drug dealers, not a situation you want to be in. He lost most of his freedoms. He did spend at least some time in solitary confinement.
There was never a moment in my life worse in terms of a lack of freedom than when I was in solitary confinement, when I was in the hole. That was the point on earth where I had the least amount of freedom. I had no freedom to do anything.
He didn't get to spend time with his mother as she died.
My mother passed away. Her cancer, I guess, was building for years, but it may have been that the stress of this exacerbated it. And so that obviously was devastating.
He did not get to attend her funeral. The damage that he caused his family, the shame that he caused his wife, the disruption in their lives he caused his children are all things that I think weigh on him every day.
And it's a continuing project for all of us to get through this. This isn't over. It may never be over.
Mr. Abramoff owes the federal government about $40 million.
I don't know that I'll ever be able to pay it off. I'm going to try, but it's in the tens of millions of dollars. And You know, I'm not going to be a lobbyist again, so I'm probably not going to make money like that. You know, there will always be a lack of freedom. And even after I paid the restitution, I'm a felon. I can never vote again. I can never be in a house where there's a firearm. I can't serve on a jury. There are lots of things that I will never be able to do again.
How can you be certain that you won't engage in this type of behavior? You know, do you have internal safeguards now, or is there just been a complete remaking?
I don't know that I've changed any of my character traits. I hope I have. I don't know. It's a constant struggle. These things that were embedded in me were from the time of my being a child. I'm still competitive, but I'm trying to channel that competitive nature into something good. And it was in prison that I decided that I wouldn't merely accept this new belief system, but I would try to do something to help affect it as a way of making some recompense, which is what leads me to come out and speak publicly and to write my book, because otherwise, frankly, going away and hiding was the choice the prime choice for me.
Tonight, we bring someone to our campus to talk about moral and legal failure. Now, some might wonder why we should invite someone to speak on this campus like Mr. Abramoff, who has broken the laws of our country and has behaved unethically in ways that cause significant harm to others. And I can assure you that each of the faculty and staff members who were involved in the decision-making and planning for this event asked that same question when the possibility was first presented to us. Jack Abramoff is a convicted felon who served over 3 years in a federal prison for his crimes, and he describes that experience as horrible. He's also a graduate of Brandeis University.
We believe that at the end of one's life, one goes up to heaven and you get played basically a video of your whole life, everything you thought and everything you did in front of everybody you love. And that can be hell or that can be heaven, depending on who you are. I got that opportunity on Earth to see.
Jack made the mistake many of us make, and that is he was really blind to the ethical issues. He framed his situation so ethical issues were just not in the picture at all. And it's easy to do that. Clearly, he was in a toxic environment, but all of us live in environments that have some degree of toxicity in them, and we've got to recognize that and have the moral imagination that enables us to live both ethical and successful lives.
I think we've got to frame our lives in ways that we can be proud of, and we've got to measure our lives by metrics we can be proud of. And if our only metric is, am I going to win? Am I going to make more money? You're going to make different decisions then if one of your metrics is, am I going to act honorably? Am I going to act consistently with my own ethical values?
Thank you, Jack.
Sure.
I really appreciate your
Thanks,
patience.
guys.
Yeah.
Thanks so much. Thanks. My old environment where I had staff of 40 people and restaurants and planes and cars and this and that and boats and whatever, that was the movie I was at last week. I'm at a different movie this week, and I have to deal with that.